One of the biggest questions I get on this channel is, what am I using for my setup? And so I thought I would answer that today. Since this channel started succeeding, I decided to actually go ahead and try to create my dream author / content creator office. I was lucky enough to find this space here for a relatively cheap price, because before I was just sequestered in a tiny little corner of our living room, which just doesn't really work for all of the things that I have planned. So once I got this space, I decided to really go to town and make it the absolute perfect office that I could make it, as well as building my own computer, which is specifically designed for some of the more long-term thinking that I have here, like being able to run things like Unreal Engine, because I think that there is a lot of storytelling opportunity there, as well as being able to run large language models locally on the machine, and to do the same with AI art as well, to being able to run that locally through Stable Diffusion. Plus, there are a lot of other little items here and there that I just thought would make the perfect author setup. So let's go ahead and start with the tour. I'm going to start with everything that's on the walls here, and then get into the bookshelves and other items in the office before getting to the desk and the entire YouTube setup and computer and all of that, so you can see everything that I've got. All of the items pretty much that I have in this room, aside from a few of the things like the bookshelves that I just bought at Walmart, I will have linked down below, so you can get them as well if you want to, build a similar setup or create your own dream author setup. So with that, let's move to the tour. All right, so let's go ahead and start with what's on the walls here. To start with, this right here is an Audimute panel. It's a sound panel that I have put an image on. This image is one that I developed using a combination of different things, including a whole lot of time in Photoshop, but also with some AI and things, and with Magnific AI to upscale it. This is basically Camelot as I see it in my Arthurian fiction that I work on, with just a generic character looking here. It's supposed to kind of represent everything, the kind of heroic optimism that I'm really going for in all of my books. But I made it double as a really high quality sound panel. So this is probably the main panel that I use for sound absorption. Speaking of sound absorption, up here I have a few more panels. I don't know how effective these really are, but I've got a whole bunch of them over here just as additional soundproofing. And then I got a few on this wall over here as well. A couple of people have asked me what these pictures are, and all of these pictures here that you see are my heroes. Now, I'm a religious person. If you're not a religious person, that's fine. But for that reason, I have Jesus here at the very start. Specifically, Jesus as played by the actor from The Chosen, because I just feel like he is the closest to how I imagine Jesus actually would have been. And then right next to him, we got Brandon Sanderson, one of my favorite authors, probably my favorite living author right now. We have Walt Disney, who is a huge inspiration for me, especially if you've been watching the other videos in this series. George Lucas, of course. Stan Lee, the primary creative mind behind Marvel. Kind of hiding behind this lamp here is William Shakespeare. Huge inspiration for me. And I've got like a whole mini universe that I want to do based on all of his stuff. Of course, the master J.R.R. Tolkien, writer for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And highly underrated author Mary Shelley, author of Frankenstein, and basically the inventor of the science fiction genre. Huge influence right there. Frankenstein blew my mind the first time I ever read it, and it's always just been a huge inspiration for me. And character Frankenstein's monster will feature prominently in some of my books. So next to that, we got Joseph Campbell, who is a mythologist and basically the inventor of the idea of the hero's journey. And as an amateur mythologist myself, I really respect and admire him. Also, just as a story structure geek myself, I really admire him. A few more religious items here. This is Mormon, that the Book of Mormon is named after. I like him because he was a historian, and I love history. This is the current leader of my church, Russell M. Nelson. And then this is actually my grandfather, who I will have more to say about in a minute, but he is another inspiration to me. He passed away sadly in '93. But for some reason has really had a big impact on me, even though I was only 5 years old when he passed. Here on the wall, I have this level up poster, or not poster, but ornament. And this is kind of, it's a long story, but my wife and I have this little thing that we'll do sometimes where we'll just like, when we want to pump each other up, we'll just say level up, and we'll like clap our hands and do a little fist bump. And we've got my daughter in on it now. She'll do it with us too. It's kind of cute. So that's kind of what that is represent. Just a reminder to always be trying to level up and improve. Kind of along those lines, here on my door, I've got the Story Hacker Declaration, or manifesto, if you will, which I'm not going to read for you here, but it's pretty powerful, and I quite like it. And then back to my grandfather again. This is a piece of artwork that my grandfather made. He was an amateur artist himself. He created several pieces like this. It's a beautiful piece of woodwork here. He made a whole bunch of them, but this is the one that got passed down to me. And so I keep it in a prominent place on my wall just because he was one of the more artistic members of my family, and as someone who considers himself an artist and a storyteller, is a huge inspiration for me. So that's pretty much what's on the walls here. So let's talk about the bookshelves and some of the other items in this room. So I've got this lamp here, which I just got at Walmart. On here is a Meta Quest 3. Which I got specifically because I want to really dig into this idea of interacting with stories in a much more real and tactile way. I think there's a huge future for authors to be thinking along those lines. And as a side, it just sort of ended up being a really good exercise tool for me. You know, we're supposed to, if we're sitting at a desk for a long time, you're supposed to be getting up like at least every hour, if not every half hour. And I find that, you know, going through, putting on the Meta Quest 3 and playing like a little bit of Beat Saber is the perfect amount of physical activity to do in 10 minutes or so before getting back to work. I have a few other cables and things here for charging things, and my Wi-Fi is down there. I've got this futon because every author needs a place to sort of lie down and rest and just stare at the ceiling for a little while, I feel, and as well as to read. So that's why I specifically wanted a futon or something, you know, kind of small, but big enough that I could lie down in if I needed to in my office. There's my backpack that I bring every day with my lunch. Pikachu, which doubles as a pillow when I need him. I don't really have anything particularly tying me to Pikachu. I was a Pokemon fan when I was younger, but I just thought it looked good. Over here I've got some workout equipment, and we've got a yoga mat and a weight bench that I can unfold, and then a workout band there. I do my workouts pretty much every day when I'm in the office, 6 days a week. This right here is a Govee light stick. I've got two of them, one there and one on this side, and that provides the usually blue and yellow light that you see. And we have this bookshelf. Now this bookshelf is probably the one, even though you don't really see it in the videos that I make, it's the one that I've specifically designed to be the most on display, shall we say. These are my books right here, some of them at least, and my Stormtrooper helmet. The idea is that within the next 5 or 6 years to fill this bookshelf entirely with books that I either wrote or that are set in my universe and I commissioned through ghostwriters or co-writers or what have you. So, picture of my wife and I during our wedding. Lego bonsai trees, some Lord of the Rings and other like fantasy related books here. A couple of my Star Wars memorabilia that I've picked up. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I've got this Luke Skywalker lightsaber, a whole bunch of books, a whole bunch of movies. Got another Lego set down here of the London skyline, because for some reason I just love the UK a lot. Premium edition of Ben-Hur, because Ben-Hur is the greatest film ever made. And down here some more Star Wars memorabilia and things of that nature. I've even got this one on the far left here is a Laserdisc version of the original Star Wars films. I got some VHS versions in there. Big fan. Over here we've got some more weights for my workouts that I do every day. This is just a small little cabinet with some storage that I use for various things. Over here, a bunch more books, a couple more of my books, but also this is one of my most inspirational books that I read quite frequently. Been a big one for me. A bunch of other books, some Star Trek memorabilia down there because I'm also a Star Trek fan. I'm a fan with no borders. just some more random memorabilia things, a bunch of Rubik's Cubes that I've learned to solve at the time, a bunch of marketing books as well. And here I put together a number of just things that I want ready access to near my desk, but don't want them on my desk. So a bunch of notebooks and pencils, and like even like you'd be surprised how useful a back scratcher is. We got one of those in there, and then a bunch of books mostly on mythology and different things there, Arthurian legends, H.P. Lovecraft, pulp fiction, a bunch of stuff down there, and that's all research and things that I do for my fiction. All right, so that brings us to the desk. Okay. So this is where most of the magic happens. I've got quite a nice setup here. We'll start with this chair. So right away I knew the most important thing for me was going to be ergonomics, because I knew I was going to spend a lot of time at this desk and wanted to avoid things like carpal tunnel, and I've had back pain in the past, so helping to mitigate that. So this is probably the single most expensive item right here was this chair. Even more, well, not as expensive as the computer altogether, but more expensive than any single piece of the computer that I had. So this thing is the Herman Miller Aeron ergonomic chair, rated highly for its ergonomics. That's the reason I got it. And I also, speaking of ergonomics, got this Logitech ergonomic keyboard and Logitech ergonomic mouse. And then we have a little stand here for my phone. I also got this Middle-earth themed mouse pad for my keyboard and mouse, which I think looks really great. We got 3 monitors here, and I do think that 3 is a little excessive. 2 is perfect for me, but I have found that 3 is useful for me because I will put my to-do list on one screen and just leave it there. So I just always have that to-do list there, and then I can do my work on the other 2. These panels are Elgato key light panels. So one is used as my key light, and another is used as my fill light. This is the Sony E10 camera with it's not the lens that it came with. It's a different lens, so I can get a little bit more depth of field in my videos. And I'll make sure all of the exact lens and everything is linked down below. I also have this Logitech Brio 4K webcam. And down here we have a Shure podcasting mic with a Elgato boom arm, which allows it to sort of slide underneath the monitors, which is handy. These are some old Bose speakers that I've had for almost 20 years now. Literally since I was a teenager, I've had these 2 speakers. They've served me really, really well. Speakers are one of those things that, you know, the technology doesn't actually improve that much over time, so I use them even though they're quite old now. I've got a little bit of a desk fan here because it can get warm up here sometimes. This is an Elgato Stream Deck, which gives me just a couple of shortcuts to all of the different work options that I use. So I have like a mode for filming and a mode for writing and things. All I have to do is press a button and it kind of automatically formats my desktop for that. It's just a little time saver. This is a little plaque that my wife had made for me and gave to me on my birthday a couple of years ago that I've always kept on my desk since. And this is a little Pomodoro timer that I use to keep me from sitting in my chair for too long. So that's the general idea on everything that we have on this desk. We also have, of course, a water bottle. And then this is a long story. This is a VHS copy of Big Bird in China. And to make the long story short, this really resonated with me as a kid, and I just fell in love with China, and I really consider it to be the start of my fascination with various cultures. And because of that, I found myself, you know, all of the work I do now with my own fiction is all based around different cultures, and I keep this here as a reminder so that I can try and create the same resonance in other people and fascination with culture in other people that this particular film did for me as a kid. That's kind of my mission with the whole fiction side of my business, is to really open people up to different ideas and different cultures and explore that as much as they can and really build that fascination. So that's why that's there. Let's talk about this computer. So I've got this mounted to the underside of my desk. This desk, by the way, is an Apex Desk Pro. I think Apex Desk Pro. It is a standing desk, so I've got different things to make my desk stand up over there. I'll list all of the different pieces that went into this build. I did build it myself, but the two main components is the Intel i9 chip, which is the most recent chip, and then as a graphics card I got the GTX 4080 Super, which is the second highest. Some people might ask, why didn't you get the 4090? Well, mostly because it was like a 20% improvement on performance for nearly 100% increase in price. So that wasn't okay with me. Besides, I'm sure there's going to be better graphics cards coming out very shortly. But the 4080 Super is, rated for AI, and the NVIDIA GPUs are generally good for AI. So I built this thing to specifically handle various AI applications, but also to handle a couple of gaming applications. I'm not really a PC gamer, but I do want to mess around with Unreal Engine and some things like that, so I can actually create some worlds and go around them. Maybe even use my MetaQuest over here to explore some of those worlds. I can connect the MetaQuest to this computer, so there's lots of cool potential there that I'm just starting to get hang out. And that is the tour of my entire office. The ideal, perfect author/content creator office for me. So I hope you found that tour helpful. And if you want to know more about my journey to becoming a thriving publisher, I have a whole playlist here that I will link to where you can actually go through and see the previous videos in this series tracking my development of my publishing business. So I hope you'll check that out, and I will see you in the next video.